Welcome back, Deep Divers. Today we're diving into a topic that I know a lot of you have been requesting. Rediscovered artifacts. You know, like those incredible objects that pop up from the past, sometimes after being lost for centuries. And they totally reshape what we thought we knew about history. A bunch of you were really curious about medieval swords specifically, like what kind of secrets they might hold. Oh man, get ready for tales of clanging steel and epic battles later on. But first, let's zoom out a bit and explore, like, the wider impact of rediscovered objects on how we understand history, To help us decode all this, we've got an expert joining us who can practically hear those whispers from the past. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's awesome to be here to chat about these incredible finds. You're right, every single artifact has its own story to tell, and sometimes those stories can completely flip our understanding of entire civilizations.
I love that. A story in every object. It's like that feeling you get when you're in an antique shop and you pick up some old locket or a worn-out book, right?
Yeah.
You can't help but wonder about all the hands that held it before you. But today, we're not just talking about any old antique. We're talking about objects that have been, like, hidden away for centuries, sometimes even millennia. Objects with the power to rewrite history as we know it.
Exactly. And these rediscoveries can happen anywhere, really, from a farmer's field to, like, a dusty museum basement. Speaking of museums, shall we kick things off with one of the most famous rediscoveries ever, the Rosetta Stone?
Oh, absolutely. The Rosetta Stone is like the ultimate historical decoder ring.
Sure.
But for those who might not know the whole story, can you give us a quick rundown of what it is and why it's such a big deal?
Sure thing. The Rosetta Stone is this slab of black basalt, kind of like a giant stone tablet, and it's inscribed with a decree, issued way back in 1996 BCE. Now, what makes it so special is that it's got the same text written in 3 different scripts: ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs, Demotic script, and ancient Greek.
Hold on, Demotic script. I'm guessing most of us out here, myself included, might not be familiar with that one.
You got that right. Demotic script was basically like a simplified, everyday version of hieroglyphs. Think of it like a cursive for hieroglyphs, I guess. It was used in ancient Egypt for things like legal documents and contracts. And that third version, the ancient Greek, that's the one that cracked the whole thing wide open.
So it's kind of like having a message in 3 languages,
Yeah.
but you only understand one of them, and suddenly, boom, you find the key to unlock the other 2.
You got it. Before the Rosetta Stone was rediscovered in 1799, hieroglyphs were this total mystery. For centuries, Scholars knew they were some form of writing, but they had no clue how to actually read them. Imagine staring at this beautiful, complex code with zero way to break it.
It's wild to imagine an entire writing system being a complete enigma. Makes you realize how much knowledge we just take for granted, huh? So how did the Rosetta Stone change all that?
Well, because scholars already knew ancient Greek, right? They were able to use that Greek text on the stone as a guide to decipher the hieroglyphs and the Demotic script next to it, like finding a giant translation key.
So it wasn't just about deciphering one single message. It was about unlocking a whole writing system, an entire language that had been silent for what? Centuries. That's incredible. What kind of impact did that have on our understanding of ancient Egypt?
Oh man, the impact was massive. Imagine suddenly being able to read everything, from ancient temples and tombs to papyrus scrolls filled with stories and poems and historical accounts. It was like a whole new world of knowledge just, boom, opened up overnight.
That's mind-blowing. To think about all the insights we got from finally being able to read those ancient texts.
Yeah.
Did anything particularly surprising come to light? Anything unexpected?
Oh, tons. For example, we learned that the ancient Egyptians weren't just obsessed with the afterlife, They were also incredibly skilled mathematicians, astronomers, engineers. We even discovered they developed medical treatments for things like broken bones and eye diseases way ahead of their time.
It's amazing how one single discovery can just completely shift our perspective on an entire civilization. It really makes you wonder, like, how many more historical misconceptions are out there just waiting to be, corrected by the next big find.
Totally. And speaking of discoveries that changed our understanding of history, have you ever heard of the Sutton Hoo treasures?
Oh yeah, that's the ultimate Anglo-Saxon time capsule, right? A whole ship buried with a king and a hoard of incredible treasures. Tell me everything.
All right, get ready for a story that's part Indiana Jones, part historical thriller. Picture this. It's 1939, rural England. This archaeologist named Basil Brown, he's excavating burial mounds on a property called Sutton Hoo, and what he finds is just mind-blowing. The remains of a massive Anglo-Saxon ship burial dating all the way back to the 7th century.
Now, I gotta admit, when I hear Anglo-Saxon, I instantly think Vikings and Beowulf.
Yeah.
But can you give us a little more context for those who might not be, total history buffs?
Sure. The Anglo-Saxons were a group of Germanic people who settled in Britain in the 5th century AD, after the Romans left, that is. They brought their own language, culture, traditions, all of which eventually blended with the existing Romano-British population. The Sutton Hoo burial falls right in the middle of this period, when Anglo-Saxon kingdoms were flourishing in England.
Okay, got it. So back to the ship burial. I've seen pictures of the treasures found at Sutton Hoo, and they are seriously stunning. What exactly was discovered inside that ship?
Well, imagine a treasure trove fit for a king, literally. Inside the ship, they found this wealth of objects: gold and silver jewelry, intricately crafted weapons and armor, drinking horns, even musical instruments. The craftsmanship is just breathtaking.
I'm picturing like a scene straight out of a movie, with archaeologists carefully brushing away centuries of dirt to reveal all these glittering treasures. But honestly, what always stands out to me is the Sutton Hoo helmet. It's so iconic.
Oh, for sure. That helmet is a total masterpiece of Anglo-Saxon artistry. It's made of iron and decorated with these elaborate scenes of warriors and mythical beasts, all rendered in gold and garnets. And that face mask?
Yeah.
Incredible. It has this fierce, almost otherworldly expression.
Dude, I get chills just thinking about the skill and the artistry it took to create something like that. But in the grand scheme of history, what makes the Sutton Hoo treasures so significant?
Well, before Sutton Hoo, the Anglo-Saxon period was often seen as kind of like a dark age, a time of violence and upheaval, But the treasures found at Sutton Hoo painted a very different picture.
So it challenged the whole prevailing narrative of the time.
You got it. Sutton Hoo showed this level of sophistication, artistry, and wealth that most historians hadn't really associated with the Anglo-Saxons. It showed they were capable of creating objects of just extraordinary beauty and complexity, and it forced us to reevaluate our understanding of their culture and their place in history.
It's like a perfect example of how a single discovery can completely flip our assumptions about the past. It makes you wonder what other treasures are out there, just waiting to be unearthed.
Yeah.
And, challenge our understanding of history.
Well, here's where things get even more interesting. Sometimes rediscovering history doesn't actually involve digging in the dirt. Sometimes it happens right under our noses, in the most unexpected places. Museums.
Wait, are you telling me museums have, secret vaults filled with hidden treasures? This sounds like something out of a Dan Brown novel.
Well, maybe not secret vaults exactly, but you'd be amazed by what's lurking in museum storage rooms. Think about it. Museums have been collecting objects for centuries, and while the most famous pieces get the spotlight in exhibits, there are thousands more tucked away in storage, some even forgotten for decades. But those forgotten objects, they can hold incredible stories just waiting to be rediscovered.
So it's like museums are kind of like their own archaeological bigs, with curators and researchers acting as modern-day Indiana Joneses. Tell me more about these fascinating museum rediscoveries.
All right, let's start with a story that takes us back to the very beginning of humanity. Imagine a flint tool. So unassuming, you could easily mistake it for just a rock. Now imagine this tool being found among fossils of mammoths and woolly rhinoceroses. That's the story of the Prestwich Evans axe.
Okay, you got me hooked. Tell me more. What's so special about this axe? It just sounds like an ordinary tool.
Well, the Prestwich Evans axe was discovered in the Natural History Museum in London, tucked away in a drawer where it had been sitting for decades. It was originally found alongside mammoth and rhino fossils, which suggested it was insanely old. But it wasn't until 2009 that researchers took a closer look and realized its true significance.
So this seemingly ordinary axe turned out to be something truly extraordinary.
Exactly. The Prestwich Evans axe gave crucial evidence that early humans were present in Britain. Way, way earlier than anyone thought. It pushed back the timeline of human presence in Britain by hundreds of thousands of years, completely changing our understanding of human migration and evolution.
It's mind-blowing to think that something that could fit in your hand could rewrite the history of humankind. Okay, I need to hear more about these museum rediscoveries. What other hidden treasures have been lurking in the shadows?
Okay, how about this? A 2,000-year-old mummy shroud just sitting unopened in a museum for 80 years. Can you imagine the anticipation of finally unwrapping something like that? It's like opening a time capsule from ancient Egypt.
This is getting better and better. Where was this shroud discovered, and what secrets did it reveal?
This incredible find happened at the National Museum of Scotland. The shroud, beautifully preserved even after all those years, was finally unwrapped in 2019. And what they found was remarkable. Not only was the shroud itself a work of art, It depicted the deceased as the god Osiris, but it also had hieroglyphics. That identified him as the son of a high-ranking ancient Egyptian official. It was like a whole chapter of ancient Egyptian history just hidden away for centuries.
Okay, this is like a real-life episode of Secrets of the Museum right here. I can't even imagine the excitement of those researchers finally unraveling this 2,000-year-old mystery. Do you have any more stories like this?
Oh, I got plenty more. How about this one? A forgotten Roman emperor, rediscovered not in a grand tomb, but in a museum basement.
Wait, what? A Roman emperor just hanging out in a basement? Okay, you have to tell me more about this.
I know, right? Sounds crazy. But it's true. Back in the 1980s, a bronze statue of the Roman Emperor Trajan was found in Bulgaria, but somehow it ended up, like, totally forgotten, in the basement of the National Museum of History. Years later, someone just stumbled upon it and realized, hey, we've got a priceless Roman artifact down here, gathering dust.
Wow. Talk about a hidden gem. I can't believe a Roman emperor statue could just get lost like that. What's even crazier is that he wasn't the only big name to have a lost and found moment in a museum. Remember Charles Darwin, the father of evolution.
Oh, yeah. An egg that was collected during his famous voyage on the HMS Beagle, right? It was rediscovered, tucked away in a drawer. At Cambridge University Zoology Museum, it was misidentified for years until this dedicated volunteer, meticulously cataloged the museum's entire egg collection. Talk about a needle in a haystack.
It makes you wonder how many other treasures are just hidden in plain sight, just waiting for someone with a sharp eye to come along and recognize their significance. These stories are amazing, but I'm also curious about the bigger picture. How did these rediscoveries actually impact historical research today?
That's a great question. These rediscovered artifacts are like puzzle pieces. They help us fill in the gaps in our understanding of the past. They can confirm theories we have, challenge assumptions, sometimes even rewrite entire chapters of history.
So it's not just about adding more stuff to the history books, it's about, like, refining our understanding, making it more accurate and nuanced.
Exactly. Take the Prestwich-Evans axe, for example. That one tool significantly pushed back the timeline for human evolution in Britain. And the Sutton Hoo treasures. They totally transformed our view of Anglo-Saxon England, revealing this level of wealth and sophistication and artistry that was, like, unimaginable before.
It's incredible how just one object can have such a huge ripple effect on our knowledge. But it's not just the objects themselves, right? Technology is playing a huge role in these rediscoveries too, isn't it?
Absolutely. New technologies are totally revolutionizing how we study the past. Think about CT scans. They allow us to see inside objects without actually, damaging them, revealing hidden details, and even virtually reconstructing artifacts that are broken.
It's like having X-ray vision for history. What other technologies are being used?
Oh, we've got 3D modeling and printing, which let us create replicas of artifacts for further study or even to share with other museums and researchers all over the world. And then there's DNA analysis, which helps us trace the origins and movements of ancient peoples, their diets, even the diseases they had.
It sounds like technology is giving historians this whole new toolkit to work with. But beyond the scientific analysis, there's another layer to all of this that I find super fascinating. The human stories behind the objects themselves.
Totally agree. Every artifact has a story to tell about the people who made it, used it, treasured it, about the time and place it came from. And sometimes those stories are just as captivating as the objects themselves.
Let's go back to that 2,000-year-old mummy shroud for a second. The fact that it was so beautifully painted and had all those detailed hieroglyphics tells us that this person, even though we don't know his name,
was someone important, right? It gives us a glimpse into the social hierarchy of ancient Egypt.
And think about the craftsmanship of the Sutton Hoo helmet, the intricate designs, the golds and garnets. It points to a level of artistry and skill that's just mind-blowing. These weren't just objects, they were expressions of culture, belief, and power.
It's wild to think about these objects surviving for centuries, sometimes millennia, carrying those stories within them. It makes you wonder, what other stories are still out there, waiting to be discovered? Like you said earlier, sometimes those stories are hidden away in museum collections. Do you have any more examples of those museum mysteries? Oh, definitely. Remember how we talked about museum storage rooms being full of these fascinating objects? Well, sometimes those objects can be a little unsettling. The Carnegie Museum of Natural History had a pretty surprising discovery. While they were renovating this old taxidermy display, it was like 150 years old.
Wait, what kind of surprise? Was it like a hidden compartment or a secret message?
Not quite. They were working on this display. It was lions attacking a man and his camel. And they discovered that the human figure, well, it contained a real human skull.
Whoa, okay, that's a little creepy, but also kind of fascinating. It's a stark reminder that the past wasn't always, some romanticized fairy tale.
You got it. It challenges our perceptions and reminds us that history is full of complexities, contradictions, and sometimes, yeah, unsettling truths. But that's what makes it so compelling. Unraveling these layers, understanding the past in all its different shades.
Speaking of unraveling layers, let's talk about those medieval swords you wanted to explore at the beginning. Imagine the stories those blades could tell, every nick, every scratch on the metal, a testament to its journey through time.
It's amazing to think about the battles they might have seen, the hands that wielded them. Medieval swords were more than just weapons, They were symbols of power, status, even spirituality. The forging of a sword, that was a highly skilled process, steeped in tradition and lore.
So if we could somehow unlock those memories held within the swords, we'd get a totally new perspective on medieval life. We might learn about medieval blacksmithing techniques, battle tactics, even the codes of chivalry that governed knights.
Exactly. And while we can't literally unlock memories, of course, the study of medieval swords can tell us a lot. Their construction, their decoration, their historical context, it all offers valuable insights into the world they were created in.
We've covered so much ground today. Ancient tombs, museum basements, Roman emperors, Anglo-Saxon kings. But what does it all really mean for us? Why should we even care about rediscovering history?
I think rediscovering history is about more than just adding facts to textbooks. It's about connecting with our past, understanding where we come from, appreciating the incredible ingenuity and creativity of humans throughout time.
It's like a reminder that we're all part of this massive story, One that's been unfolding for thousands of years.
Exactly. And by learning about the past, we can better understand the present, and maybe even make smarter choices for the future.
It's a powerful reminder that the past isn't really gone. It's all around us, waiting to be rediscovered and reinterpreted. So what are some of the biggest mysteries that you think are still out there, waiting to be unearthed, literally or figuratively?
Ooh, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? I have a feeling we've only just scratched the surface. Think about all the civilizations that have come and gone, all the stories that are lost to time. There are going to be countless treasures out there, both literal and metaphorical, just waiting to be rediscovered, maybe even in someone's attic right now.
Now that's an exciting thought. I can't wait to see what the future holds for historical research. We've talked a lot about these big discoveries, famous artifacts, emperors and basements, but what about the everyday objects, the stuff that seems like totally mundane? What kind of stories might those things hold?
Ooh, that's a tough one. They're also fascinating in their own way, but I think I gotta go with the Rosetta Stone. It's such a, game changer, not just for what it tells us about ancient Egypt, but for how it totally revolutionized, our whole approach to understanding the past. It really shows the power of language and how connected human history really is.
I love that choice. It really is amazing to think that something is seemingly simple as a stone slab could have such a huge impact on how we understand a whole civilization. It's like a reminder that sometimes the most ordinary-looking objects can unlock these huge mysteries. Well, we've covered a ton of ground today, from ancient tombs to museum basements, Roman emperors to Anglo-Saxon kings. But I think a big takeaway for me is that history is always being rediscovered and reinterpreted. It's not just a static collection of facts and dates, It's a living, breathing story that's always evolving.
Absolutely. And it's a story that everyone can be a part of. You don't have to be a professional archaeologist or historian to make discoveries. Sometimes all it takes is a curious mind, right? And a willingness to look a little deeper.
That's so true. So to all our listeners out there, I've got a challenge for you.
Yeah.
Next time you're at a museum, don't just zoom past the exhibits. Take your time, really look at the objects, read the descriptions, and let your imagination run wild.
Yeah. Think about the people who created those objects, the lives they lived, the world they lived in. You might be surprised by the connections you make, the stories you uncover.
Because history isn't just about dates and battles and big names, right? It's about people, their stories, and what they leave behind. And those stories are just waiting to be rediscovered, explored, shared.
And who knows, maybe you'll be the one to make the next big discovery. Until then, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep diving deep into this amazing world of history.
Thanks for joining us on this incredible deep dive. We'll catch you next time for another adventure through time.